Welcome to this video, where we will analyze the Chapter 72 of Dragon Ball Super issued yesterday, and that will be the last of the year, since as we know next week, there will be no chapters on the occasion of the Feast of the End of the Year, taking as the date for the launch of the next episode on Sunday 8 in Japan. As we saw in the previous chapter, in the fight of Goku against Hit, had a clear advantage in favor of Hit, being very easy for this to stop the heart of Goku in a single blow, but as immediately come to its rescue, Piccolo, Gohan and Goten, which had been too Goku concerned by their confrontation against Hit. And we can too see Piccolo trying to revive his heart using the same technique that used against Gohan, when Freezer highly unconscious, but in spite of their efforts fails to revive Goku, until as had been mentioned in the analysis of the progress of this chapter, which we will leave the link in the description so that they can see Goku before become unconscious launch the power to heave to the return will serve to wake up the computer. And as we see, the plan of Goku gives results since after receiving this power, Goku comes back to life, and although somewhat confused he says to Piccolo and their children what happened, leaving all very surprised because as all we could see in the tournament of Bills and Compa, could be observed as much difference of powers, or serious perhaps because Hit was only playing during that tournament. But Goku explains that this time Hit is using a new power. The strangest thing about all this is that as we know from the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, a Saiyan when it is hurt or seriously is to the point of dying, increases its power to fight, even coming to be duplicated, and as we have been able to see during the whole saga of Trunks of the Future, both Goku and Vegeta were defeated several times and were on the point of dying, and this should have been done that their powers will increase much, but it appears that Akira you have forgotten that small detail, or perhaps Hit is at the level of the gods of destruction. Another thing that attracts the attention is the way in which Goku asks them to all that do not interfere with his fight, as if any of them could do something about it all. Well, and the fight again gives home, but this time Goku is directed to a forest where expected to Hit, but realizes that you can feel his ki in different locations, which Goku called clones of ki, since while feel the ki of Hit in a place, this is actually another. But it seems that Goku was finally able to understand how this works, because although I cannot fully esquivarlo, have been able to prevent this technique to beat your heart, and was also able to realize that this technique crossed things. Then decides to seek an open place where this small inconvenience could prevent and could clearly see the attacks of his opponent, but the attacks of Hit have no logic, because without import that the attack is directed directly toward Goku, always an impact handily, which makes us think that Hit not only dominates the time but you can also open holes of temporary space. Also during one of the combat scenes, we can see the bad animation that again took the directors, which made us remember the terrible animation carried out during the first encounter between Goku and Bills, where it seemed to have been made by a child of 5 years. Haha. This always makes us wonder if we will always have to see scenes like this in our anime favorite. It is regrettable that the image quality has dropped both. Continuing with the fight, we have a Goku more confident than have been able to stop the attacks of his opponent and counterattack, unfortunately without success since Hit continues to be much stronger, disappearing constantly and making it almost impossible for Goku to be able to even touch him. It seems that Goku has finally realized something that we realized from the previous chapter, and is that Hit is much stronger than in the previous tournament, and is such a big difference of power that Goku until begins to tremble in fear, being something very strange in him, as the stronger was her opponent more emotion caused him. Now that I think about it, we have never seen the Goku trembling with fear before anyone, even before their own Bills, during his fight, but I imagine the purpose of Akira is to humanize a little to Goku. At the same time in the distant planet of Bills, we can see a very tired Vegeta continue with his training with Whis, lacking only 3 fighting more, but unlike what we have always been able to see with Vegeta, which never gets tired and enjoy in Trina, we see trying to convince Whis to change these 3 fighting for a fillet, which Whis rejects since it is a food that they have already tasted, and then to Vegeta is not happens better idea that say to him that he is going to give that position with the secret sauce of the grandmother lol. but that grandmother will be speaking Vegeta. If we have never seen the breast of Vegeta and much less to his grandmother, in addition and has had a grandmother alive, I believe that it is very difficult to imagine a Saiyan cooking since the Saiyans do nothing more than to fight, not even work lol. Now that I think there are many Saiyans on the planet then lol. The combat between Hit and Goku continues with a wide superiority on the part of Hit, but something very curious happens. In the scene appear both Kappa as Vados, which makes us suspect that they have been responsible for hiring to Hit to kill Goku, but that does not explain how it is that Goku knew that Hit had planned to kill him. Then we can see Vados explaining to Kappa that consists in the technique of Hit, which stores the time at Salta, and uses it to your convenience, but this seems to be too complicated to understand for Kappa. This makes me think that Kappa is weaker than Hit, but would have been great that the confrontation between them had been specified in the tournament but was stopped by the arrival of Zenizama. What draws our attention is listening to the conversation, where Kappa answers telling him that was very good idea to hire Hit to assassinate Goku, to what Vados' response that Hit is just an alternate. Who will be the holder? If Hit, Goku has not the slightest possibility of win. Perhaps this is part of the next chapters since as we know the new story arc even begins in the first week of February. Perhaps that is why Hit seemed to be teaching all their attacks, and both seem to be enjoying it, because as said Vados, Hit at this time is not a hitman but is only a fighter enjoying a good fight. But just at that moment appears Bills together with Whis and Vegeta, and it is here that Goku and Hit are aware of the presence of Kappa and Vados. But miraculously after the appearance of all, Goku appears to have discovered a way to break the technique of Hit, ending both completely exhausted, but this causes me surprise since Hit never used all its power. One of the funniest scenes is to see Vegeta jealous complaining to Goku by more fun with Hit than with him. Seems a girlfriend jealous haha. But the question is who ordered to Hit to assassinate Goku, to what Bills said that perhaps it was Vegeta, but this response do not be stupid, but to realize who you had said, kneels down to ask forgiveness to all where has been the pride Saiyan lol. Finally the mystery was unveiled, and we learned that was Goku the idea of recruiting to Hit so you can have a good fight with Hit, and Whis agreed since this would serve as a training, which has a lot to do with what we said in the above video. Hit was dismissed by saying that it will continue with its purpose of killing Goku and that care must be taken. And to finish this chapter, we can see Whis and Bills asking Vegeta to fulfill its promise to give the fillet in sauce from the grandmother who had promised them, but as we assumed everything had been only an invention of Vegeta to get rid of the rough training of Whis. In the next chapter we will see the film The Great Saiyaman, which through the images we can infer that it is an idea of Mr. Satan, and where apparently Gohan will be obliged to make the ridiculous again. It seems that this chapter promises to be the most gracious of the season. Well guys, as we have been able to see, this chapter is full of emotion. If you liked this video, leave your like and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel, World Dragon Ball HD, and leave your comments. You can also follow us in our fan page, World Dragon Ball HD, that soon we will be surprised with many news.